Hey everybody, welcome back to Global Conflict TCG. Ryan here with you. Welcome to devlog 11. I'm going to cover a few things, give you kind of a progress update on Global Conflict TCG Online. It's been a little over a week since my last update. But in this video, we're going to cover some other things too that some other problems I've had to work through and solutions I've had to find for this game. So in the title description for this video, we're going to talk about 3D layouts systems in Unity. I'm going to show you which asset I use to accomplish 3D layouts. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some UI stuff. I got the UI coin flip done. I want to show off some of the UI particle effects I got going. That's another asset that we got for this game. And just talk about the rest of the game in general. Like I said, provide you a project update. But the big topic we're going to cover is like the 3D layouts, because I spent quite a bit of time, not a lot, but a few days tinkering with different layout systems and trying to get the layouts to work correctly inside of the game. So check it out. That's what we're going to cover the most of. So let's just go ahead and dive right into this, not waste any time. So if you take a look here in the editor, and actually I think I could go, let's do this. Tools. Let's go full screen. Actually, I think if I just press F9. Oh, that's not it. Well, all right, let's just go ahead and blow up the screen. We'll take a look. So in the editor here, you can see this big blue box here in the back. This is actually the hand for the game, for player one. This right here, this box right here is the discard pile, and then there's an invisible box here you can't see, which is the deck for the player. I tried a couple different assets for 3D layout groups, and I ended up settling on an asset called, let's take a look. I believe it's called 3D layout. Yeah, 3D layout. So that is a paid asset in the asset store. It was $5. I originally started off with a free 3D layout asset called Auto 3D Layout, and which is why you see these blue boxes. So that asset being free actually worked okay for the most part, but the reason why I had to switch to the paid version, or the paid asset, is because basically the free version wouldn't allow the tween animations of moving the cards on the board. It wouldn't allow for the cards to move in Playmaker. So it was taking away that tween animation of moving the card across the board. So I switched to the paid version. There might have been a way to probably adjust the script to get it to work, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not really adept at working inside of C#. I'm not, just honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. So I switched to this paid version. It was $5, 3D layout. Now the animations work. So, but what's great about these 3D layout groups is that it keeps your cards in a specified layout within world space, which is important, especially when you have multiple cards that you're stacking up into like a deck. That's where the 3D layout group really comes into play. And then like this for the hand, we need our hand to be displayed out on an x-axis, and the 3D layout group also helps out with that too. So let's do this. So let's go ahead. I'm going to press play. I have the game fully set up, basically ready to show you where I'm at as far as I am progress wise in the game. So let's just go ahead and click play. What you're going to see the coin flip manager pop up. It's going to go through a coin flip. It's going to ask me if I want to pick heads or tails, and then after that it's going to go ahead and start the actual like deck process. It's going to create the deck. It's going to deal out some cards to me, and then it's going to ask if I want to take mulligan cards. And so you'll see. Let's go ahead and click play. And still no music. I still have no background music. All right. So one thing I got to update, I do have these new UI cards here on the corners for like player one and for the AI player in the back, which has a deck and a discard counter. I got to set those up to where they just appear after the coin flip. So we could do that here in a sec. But you can see here, this coin flip panel is kind of like my previous 2D project. I did the same thing. I took 2D images and kind of made like a coin flipping animation myself. Went with a different panel style. You can see the background is little dots that are floating up. I ended up getting this asset called UI particle effects, I think is what it's called. Really cool asset where it's on sale. I'm not sure if it's still on sale on the Unity Asset Store, but I bought it on sale. And what's really cool is like in any of your UI menus, you can add particle effects like you see on this screen. And they're not just limited to these dots. You could put like multiple different kind of textures and different object shapes and stuff like that. So I thought it was really cool just to add like a little bit of texture, a little bit of like animation to this screen so it's not so boring. So you can see here, it's just asking me to call the coin flip, heads or tails. I'll go ahead and pick tails for this one. And so like my previous project, I have a Playmaker FSM set up specifically for this. It's going to flip the coin, and then the computer is just going to randomly select which side of the coin it lands on. So it's kind of out of your control. I mean, you could pick heads or tails, but really it's going to be random. So I'll pick tails. It's going to flip a few times, and I lost the coin toss, and it says I lost the coin toss, and then it clicks out, and it goes ahead and starts begins the startup process. So you can see it dealt me 7 cards. I have my UI, so you could hover over cards and blow up the images. So in the startup manager right now, I have the opponent having 2 mulligans. That was for testing purposes. So you can see it's asking me if I want to draw cards for 2 mulligans, yes or no. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, so we'll draw 2 more cards, and then we'll go ahead and fill up our prize card slots. You can see the prizes here. They have these like 3D number over them. That's another asset that I used. I think it was like 3D text or something like that, which just kind of allows you to put 3D text in space, like in 3D space, which is pretty cool. So I thought that was kind of nice, just as like a counter for your prize cards. And then you can see down here in the right corner, if you didn't see it, the deck count is always being counted live. We have nothing in the discard pile right now. And then you can see my deck has a little bit of height to it. I got to adjust it some more. But that's where that 3D layout group comes into play. And so it takes all 70 of those cards and stacks them on top of each other in a specified manner. And kind of gives it the illusion of being an actual deck. So at this point, another thing that's probably obvious on the screen is I added some little animations on the game board itself just to give it a little bit of life. You have some guns shooting out of these watchtowers. There's jets flying by. There's like a dust bowl effect on the board. So that was kind of, and there go the jets right here. They're going to shoot at each other. That goes with one of my like visions for this game is I wanted it to kind of have like a Command and Conquer Generals type of feel. I don't know if anybody here is watching this has ever played Command and Conquer Generals, but that was one of my favorite games when I was a kid. And actually, I really started off Red Alert, but I always loved kind of the feel of Command and Conquer Generals and just the way you play it. And I wanted to take like the feel of Command and Conquer Generals and mash it with another game that I love playing, which was Pokemon TCG. And kind of morph it into one game, which is like a military TCG, but has inside of the video game has like the feel of like Command and Conquer Generals. So you're kind of getting a view of, or an idea of what my view for this game was, and this is really what I wanted. So like I added the dust bowl effects, these different guns firing from the watchtowers, got jets flying by. Eventually I'd like to have like helicopters. I'll probably put tanks and soldiers on the battlefield that'll run around and shoot. And then other props, like I put this warehouse here with the concrete pad. I got this little city, some palm trees, a little oasis. It's just trying to bring that battlefield to life. So it's not, obviously it's just a card game, but it doesn't feel like just a card game. So getting back to the card game aspect itself, you can see here I've added some UI animations to the cards where if you hover over, it'll pop up the UI image on the screen. That's really cool. I actually built that into the card prefab itself, which is nice. So like each individual card has its own UI overlay system that'll display its image. Really slick thing there. Of course, drag and drop, that was the big theme of my last devlog video. Drag and drop still works absolutely perfect. I love it. I even kind of like the shadow that it casts on the board. I think it's kind of cool. And then of course I made sure to make sure all my animations are below the cards themselves, so you're not going to have any intersecting here. So, and then like I talked about drag and drop, of course, you can go ahead and drop them into the drop zones, and they click into place. And then we'll go ahead and take another one. Another big thing, when you drop a card into the drop zone, I have about a 1 second delay before the big image will pop up. It's just so that way you're not like constantly getting flashed big images all the time. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've done so far. The base slots are disabled right now, and you can see the hand. I only have one card, purely just for testing purposes right now. But this is about the extent that I've gotten to so far. I've made pretty good progress. So I'm loading. As far as like the startup process, we're dealing 7 cards. I have a mulligan system in place, so if you don't draw a basic unit, it'll actually go and recycle your hand, reshuffle, and then draw you a new 7 cards, and count that towards the mulligan count. We have the prizes, we have prize counters, we have a little bit of UI here for your deck count, your discard count. Same thing for the AI. And that's pretty much it for that. We'll go and click off. Let's see, we'll go play focused, and we'll just kind of blow this up a little bit. We'll turn it back on, and actually what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we'll turn on the effects. So all the particle effects and stuff, I actually have them disabled, and then the game manager itself, we'll go ahead and turn those on after we finish the coin flip. But you can see my jets are flying over the battlefield. Got nobody actually in the watchtower, it's just gun firing animations. But like I said, I'm going to put some troops on the battlefield and have them run around and do some gunfighting. Be kind of cool. I just want to add some life to the battlefield, make it seem alive. But yeah, like I talked about, 3D overlay or the 3D layout groups was really critical. So if I go through, one last thing I'll say about that is let's go ahead and take a look at the player 1 objects themselves. The deck object, so the 3D layout asset that I was talking about, which is right here, it's literally just this one script called layout group. That's all it is. Super easy to use, and all you do, I have a drop zone set up here. All you got to do is add the layout group 3D script, and that's it. Like, that's all it takes. You put the script, and then it handles your complete layout group for you. Of course, you can adjust the element dimensions. You can adjust spacing like I did, which will help, you know, as far as like how it's going to stack cards on top of each other. I have 0 spacing right now. I'm playing around with this some more, trying to get it to look the best I can. But yeah, for now that works really, really good. And then some other things like I talked about, I made some adjustments to the UI, and kind of the last couple days I've spent a lot of time just addressing UI stuff and building out my UI panels, like the main canvas is one. If we go take a look, you can see my main canvas where I got the cards here with the deck and discard counters. The game messaging system, so like the coin flip panel, that's a panel I had to build, and UI. Mulligan choice panel is another one that I built, which asks you if you want to accept mulligan cards, yes or no. And I have a bunch more to build. So I think another thing that I really learned a lot from the previous project, my 2D project, is just the importance of being really organized when building these things. Because my 2D project, I didn't really take that to heart, and I kind of just ended up with game objects and scripts all over the place, and a lot of I'd say a lot of the FSMs I put together, they weren't named, and so it was a lot of work to go back and make sure that everything is properly named and colored. So this time around, I've been a lot more diligent about organization and making sure things are in the correct spots. So, you know, if you kind of look through my hierarchy here, I have, you know, just the main camera, some lights. Everything is very compartmentalized. This canvas here, which I'll probably end up deleting, that was some early iteration, but board and background objects. So like this is all the fancy stuff you see on the screen, like the board and the animations and the objects and the warehouse and the city. All of that is inside of these game objects for like the board cube, player 1 side. These are all the borders. Sand prefab, so like your sand dunes and things like that. Roads, props, trees, barriers, fences. They're all well organized so I can replicate these things across different scenes. And then of course effects is a big one. So organized, and that's just game props and game objects. And then, you know, the actual objects to play the game itself are of course organized by player one. You got my hand, all my base slots, my deck object, my discard pile, my prize cards, active slots 1 and 2, prize card counter, which is the number counters you see on the left-hand side. All of these are very well organized. And then, of course, they all, like most of them, have their own FSMs for drop zones, things like that. And then game managers, this is the big one. This is because if you've seen any of my other previous devlogs where I was building in 2D, everything, like all of the logic, there's so much that goes into it. There's so many different little controllers and managers I had to build to handle this game. I'm way more organized on the game manager side now, and I've come up, I think, with a better way of organizing these managers so that it makes sense and it's easy to work on. So you can see here I split out game managers by player 1 and player 2, and really just starting off with the startup managers first, because that, you know, that's the very first part of the game, is setting up the board so you can play. So I got that. If we go inside of the startup manager, let's go ahead and take a look. We'll zoom out. You can see that everything is like color coded already. Everything is named. You know, we're doing all these different functions, and I'm naming things as I go and color coding all the different systems that relate to each other. And another big thing too, now that this is my second time around, I'm actually like condensing what I do inside of each Playmaker action so that I don't have so many, like 100 different Playmaker states on this FSM. A lot of stuff has been condensed and put into, you know, multiple actions put into the same state. So, you know, like getting the name, array add, like all of that can be put into one state and put into sequence. Where previously, like I would have like a state for each of these actions. Like I'm getting a little bit more advanced where like I can actually just compartmentalize this stuff and make it easier. And then of course you name it. Make sure you name these things so that way you know what you're doing. Same thing here, doing a loops to, you know, find child and send them back to the deck. That, you know, that loop in my previous iteration, that was like 5 or maybe 4 or 5 different steps. Now you can see it's just one state: find child, get child, activate, enable, set parent. It's all set in sequence, so they just go boom 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 right after another. Just part of getting used to working with Playmaker, I guess, is what it is. So yeah, way more organized this time. Things are laid out. I know it still looks crazy, but everything is named, and you kind of get a gist of where things are at. And then this is where I left off on the start state. So at this point, I have to create the UI panels to prompt the player to put cards in the active spots and on their base. And then I also have to put some checks in place to make sure that player 2 is also doing the same thing, and we're putting checks in place so that one player doesn't get ahead of the other. So that's what I got to work on next. But that requires me to make some more UI panels, some more buttons, some more bool tests, things like that. But overall, just way more organized. And then I have a single game manager object here, which handles the coin flip, has the game effects managers, things like that, things that are involved with the game. I'm now keeping all of those FSMs on a single game object. For one thing, to try to reduce the amount of game objects I have in the game, but two, just to be way more organized. So, of course, the standard game manager that actually handles the game itself will be an FSM within this game object too. And then, of course, I got an audio manager as well. And you got all my UI systems. These are all organized here. Player 1 UI. If it was going to be a multiplayer game, of course, I'd have a player 2 UI also. But that's it. That's pretty much the extent of it. Done a lot of work over this last week. Lots more work to continue, I guess, would be the way to put it. Still plenty to do. What I end up finding myself doing it too is I'll work on the logic, do kind of some of the hard, stressful stuff, and then I'll take a break and I'll do some of this fun stuff like adding props, adding, you know, more to the battlefield, more effects, things that I think look cool. So I kind of just like balance out, like, because the logic part of it is really the hard and stressful part of building this game. You run into a lot of issues. It gets very stressful. We spend a few hours, so it's nice to take a break and do something fun. But all right, that's about it. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe. If you guys are interested in the project, definitely encourage you guys to subscribe. Before I let you go, there are going to be some videos coming out here pretty soon with the actual physical cards. I haven't forgot about the physical card game. I'm still very much working on that. Not as often, but definitely need to get back to it. What I can tell you guys is I had initially settled on there being an 80 card base set to start with, but I actually think I'm going to bump that back up to 100. I think with this video game, I really want it to be at that 100 mark. So I'm going to look to be adding 20 more cards back into the base set. I'll probably rework the actual starter decks themselves, and some of the rules I got to change, and then I'll be looking to release those out on the Game Crafters. So if you enjoy this stuff, stick around. There's plenty to come. There's the video game. There's the actual physical card game. There's lots to tune into. So go ahead and do that for me if you can, and I'll see you guys on the next devlog. Take care.